Hunt, fish, listen, repeat. Broadcasting from the Camp Grilling Studios, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
That's a new personal best pike here.
Now here's your host, Brett Amundson.
We have got a wild show this week, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk turkey with a bunch of turkeys. We got Cory Loeffler on the show. We got Sam Soholt. We got Ben Brettingen. We got Thor Nelson. We got David Eckhardt. We got Dan Amundson. We got Joe Henry and Erik Osberg all this week. So this is probably the most people we've crammed into the show. And this isn't even our 500th show party yet. So next week was going to be a huge show with a bunch of people. And we got a big show with a bunch of people this week, week 499. We'll tell you more about our big party again coming up here in a little bit next week, 500 show. Guys, we're going to talk about turkeys. We're going to talk about cooking turkey, hunting turkeys, some tips and tricks. We'll talk about some of the wildest wild game that we've eaten. We'll also talk about just a little bit about turkey behavior. We'll talk trapping raccoons and sanding floors with Sam Soholt later in the show. What comes with turkeys is also ticks and how to prevent ticks. So we got the Tick Terminator on the show this week. He's going to talk about what he recommends for products that you should spray on your clothing before you go hunting. And then Cory Loeffler will tell us about the new Sitka suit, the Equinox, that you can get that is also got tick repellent baked right into it. We've got a Rainy River update from Joe Henry. Plus, there was a fishery advisories meeting up at Lake of the Woods to talk about what's going on in the lake. What's the health of the lake? Where are the walleye numbers at? What kind of angling hours was there on the lake this winter? Joe will explain all of that and what came out of that meeting coming up later in the show. And then Erik Osberg will join us as well, too, to talk about new panfish regulations and what the regs might mean for panfish paradise. If you're going to go up there and fish for bluegills, what you need to know if you're going to fish Otter Tail Lakes country. Dan, who is this week's show brought to us by?
This week's show is brought to us by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Camp Grayling, catch the Grand Slam, lake trout, pike, grayling, and walleye. Fish Camp Grayling in Saskatchewan this summer. Otter Tail Lakes Country, find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Haybell Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Book your summer getaway this summer. Learn more at haybellheights.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this spring or summer to catch a bunch of walleyes at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Prairie Sportsman, the new season is underway. Watch episodes on the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel or check your TV guide for local air times. And Mid-Migration Outfitters, come hunt waterfowl out of 10-man pits and comfortable blinds at the famous Loch Pearl Refuge. Learn more at midmigrationoutfitters.com.
Holy smokes, you almost timed it right over
It's
there.
amazing when it gets shorter.
Yeah, it did get a little bit shorter this week. A couple of shows took place recently. Well, our big show is next week, the SJR 500 up at the Rainy River. We're going to be celebrating at Riverbend Resort on the Rainy, and we're watching the river open up slowly. It's been a little bit slower than we'd had anticipated, but guys were fishing above the rapids east of Birchdale and catching fish here this week. And we'll get more of an update with Joe coming up later in the show because he's up there right now. But we are going to throw a big party. It's a Fish Donkey fishing tournament, 3 longest walleyes, 3 longest sturgeon. You have to download the Fish Donkey app to participate. It's $20 a guy. You could have 10 guys in your boat. All 10 of you guys will have to sign up. It's not by boat. It's by the person. And we're going to be giving a bunch of stuff away from Live Target, from Smith's Consumer Products. So we got crankbaits, we got fillet knives, we got electric fillet knives. We've also got a bunch of OnX Elite memberships that we're going to be giving away. And then it's also sponsored by Yamaha's Right Waters. And this is all about sustainability and promoting clean water. So the story of the Rainy River, when I told Yamaha what the Clean Water Act of 1972 did and how the sturgeon population has rebounded since then, Yamaha's like, heck yeah, that's exactly what we're about, clean water and sustainability. So Yamaha's Right Waters, Live Target. We got some DRC calls that we're going to be giving away and more. So find out at sportingjournalradio.com all the details that you're going to want to know about the SJR 500 show party next week, or just tune in right here. Wherever you're watching this, you can watch it, or you can join us up at Riverbend Resort. And next Sunday, by the way, this is one of the more unique things that I've done for Prairie Sportsman on the TV show. So another new episode of Prairie Sportsman coming this Sunday night. This is what it looks like. Coming up on the next Prairie Sportsman, we go ice climbing in a unique East Central Minnesota location. Then we visit a festival full of climbers ready to hit the ice. We also visit a preschool where kids are learning about the outdoors all year round. So you can tune in Sunday night on Pioneer PBS at 7:30 p.m. to watch that, or download. You can download the PBS app, or you can go to the new you can go to the new Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel and watch it as well on Sunday, or look for it on a PBS station. It airs on PBS stations all over the place, and then on every PBS website in the country, you can find that show at. So wherever you're watching this, you can watch Prairie Sportsman. Big news this week, you guys. Regs on Mille Lacs. You know, I don't fish Mille Lacs often. It's a bit of a drive for me. You know, I think it's everybody that lives in the Twin Cities likes, or Brainerd for that matter, they like to go fish it because it's close proximity. It's a world-class fishery. The regulations the last few years obviously have been driving people absolutely bonkers. Right or wrong, whether you like it or not like it, what it's going to do is it's going to protect the fishery and promote some sustainability. So when's the last time you guys fished? I know, Dan, you've probably fished it a little bit more than the rest of us, I suppose.
Yeah, I've been out there. I don't know. We used to make like one trip in the winter, and then we've hit it in the summer or spring, I should say, before. And I love that lake. I'll go on my own tangent about keeping walleyes and whatnot, and I love to eat walleyes as much as the next guy. But man, those days we'd go to Mille Lacs and we knew we'd stay out there all night or all day and all night, and we'd catch a pile of walleyes, and it was a blast. And we'd go home. Yeah. We didn't have to clean fish in the dark. It was great, and it was whatever. And we had so much fun just catching walleyes, because that's why you go fishing, is to catch fish and have fun, right? It's awesome to eat a meal, but if you're so bent on getting a meal, you can go somewhere else. Nobody's forcing you to go to Mille Lacs to keep a meal. You can go somewhere else, and as we've seen the last few years, resorts are doing decently well. You know, that was the big concern beforehand, was that resorts would struggle. I think they're doing okay.
Some definitely struggled.
And some did, for sure, but some are, there's still resorts on Mille Lacs, and this has been going on for a number of years now. And people love just going and catching walleyes, and it's the vocal minority, I think, that comes out on Facebook and whatnot and has an issue with it because for whatever reason they have a gripe with the DNR or whatever, or they feel that they have to keep a walleye. Well, guess what? You don't have to keep walleyes. Nobody's forcing you to do it, and nobody's forcing you to go to Mille Lacs. If you really want to keep fish, you can go to the other 9,999 lakes in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, I hope it's a long-term vision, and usually anytime the DNR does something like this, you're going to make a lot of people mad right away, and it's a short-term pain, but ideally this is to protect the future and protect the walleye fishing at Mille Lacs. Now, do I agree with everything the DNR does? No, of course not. Do I agree with everything that's going on with Mille Lacs? It's not. I don't have a dog in the fight because I don't fish it very much. It just seems so strange to me that obviously they know more about the year classes than I do, but to keep one fish between 21 and 23, at that point, we don't normally keep a walleye over 20 anyway. So unless there's a reason to take some of those fish out, and obviously maybe it's throwing a bone. If you can keep one 22-inch walleye, you get some decent meat off a 22-inch walleye. You could probably get as much meat off a 22-inch walleye as you would off, two 15-inch walleyes.
Maybe.
So, yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of meat. Once you get into that low 20s, there's a lot of meat on some of those fish. But it just seems strange to keep one. Like, that's a weird slot to me. But again, I don't know enough about the year classes on Mille Lacs. So I know people are frustrated about this, but in the long run, hopefully that means that there'll be walleyes for our kids to catch on Mille Lacs someday, or those people that are out there having kids. I don't know. I might be too late for that, but we'll see. But for the future, in any case, giving them sustainability out there, I don't know. That's all I can think of. So right now, this is the way it goes. A one fish limit from May 14th. So fishing opener, you can catch one walleye, 21 to 23, through May 30th, or 1 over 28. But let's be honest, you shouldn't be keeping anything over 28 unless the fish dies on you at that point. Then you can keep it. But you should be putting those fish back anyway. More or less, I know some people will argue with me like, they're not really reproducing very well at that point. But if you're going to mount it, a replica or a picture is going to be better in the long run anyway. For sustainability of your trophy mount, a replica or a picture is going to do better anyway. So I'm a promoter of putting those fish back. After a summer of catch and release fishing, so June will be catch and release with an early July closure to reduce hooking mortality, and then the one fish limit is expected to return September 1st. So those are the new regs. You can keep one walleye from May 14 to May 30, 21 to 23 inches. Read more about it at sportingjournalradio.com. Well, everybody's gearing up for turkeys. We're going to talk about turkeys, but a few of us out there are still chasing snow geese around a little bit. We went on a snow goose hunt recently, and this is what it's like. This is what it's like to sit next to David Eckhardt in a snow goose blind right here.
Get him!
So that's one of the videos, but that was a flock. That right there is why you want to have a tube, because all those shots going off of those birds, and we dropped one and sailed one. But if you look at the other flock of snows that we got here, you will see. You might have to fast forward just a little bit. But yeah, here we go. You'll just watch the carnage coming out. It's not even carnage. It's just wads and
well-placed shots.
Yeah, all the shooting. This was actually pretty good shooting, but you see what it's like to sit in that. Here's, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just so many shots going off right next to me. But we dumped those first 4, and then I think 3 out of the back flock. But I want to know what the shot to kill ratio was on that one.
We're keeping ammo businesses in
yeah, we definitely are.
Look at all the geese in the background too. I'll tell you what. We shot like 10 birds or whatever that day, and somebody's like, oh, only 10 birds. And it's like, you know what we saw though? Like the amount of birds that we saw, all the darks, all the ducks. It's not always about putting up a big stack. And we had a great time with some friends that we only see about this time of the year. All right, so you get to use a tube when you hunt snows, and the reason for it is because they want you to shoot as many of them as possible. But sometimes you need all those shots. And it's so funny. Yeah, David's like, are you ready for this? Here we go. I got a lot of shells to kick out. But the strategy I always tell people is you pick out a bird on your first shot, you pick out a bird on your second shot, and then when snows start to get shot at, they'll kind of ball up and turn. And when you got a tube like that, you just aim for the middle of that wad of birds and just pop, 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 pop. Just pull the trigger as fast as you can, and you'll start to see them drop out of there. But David, do you use that tube in your turkey hunting?
I do not. No, that would be a lot of shells. Turkey load's expensive.
Yeah, right. Do you use a shotgun, or are you mostly bow?
Mostly with the bow, yeah.
You're crazy. You're crazy. And one of the reasons that I've become a believer in starting to use a shotgun, because I would like to use a bow for turkeys, and it's tough unless you're on real good stuff and you got birds coming in close. It can be real frustrating, but you also have to almost have to have a perfect shot with that bow on those turkeys. So where are you aiming?
Right for the crease on the wing there, or I follow the legs straight up and then into the body just a tiny bit. But there's a lot of feathers on those birds, and you're aiming for about the size of a softball, so it can be pretty tricky to get the right spot. I've had to chase them down before with not perfect shots, or you break the legs and they ended up flying off somewhere and you find them piled up. But they're tricky. I've been kicking around the idea of getting into the guillotines, going for the head shots, because those birds don't go anywhere. But
yeah, well, they might flop a little bit.
Yeah, they'll flop around.
They don't go anywhere. Yeah. Well, there's a good shot right there. But you did have one turkey that you had to put a second arrow into. It sounds like.
Yeah. Yep. The first shot, I thought it looked good, but after I got the bird and cleaned it, I found that it had hit the wing bone and deflected off that and just went through the breast meat and didn't even phase it. I think it thought the Jake, there was the first shot. I think that it thought the Jake attacked it or something, because it just went right back to.
And you didn't miss. You hit him there.
I hit him there, and it looked like a good shot placement, but you can see the arrow take a hard left and that bird just went right back to attacking the decoy. And then I ended up getting a good second shot on it, and it only went 30 yards and tipped over.
Fortunate that you were able to get that second shot before it bolted. Well, there you go. Are you going to stick to shooting a bow at these things, or are you going to switch to shotgun?
No, I like shooting them with the bow, and I like it gives you the opportunity to hunt the full season. So
right. You travel a little bit. You hunt South Dakota?
I have. I used to hunt every year. I'm hoping to go to the Black Hills this year.
That'd be sweet.
That'll probably be shotgun just because it's such a short trip. But no, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we got more turkey talk coming up. We've got Cory Loeffler, Sam Soholt, Ben Brettingen, Thor Nelson, and us all going to talk turkeys. And Dan's going to tell his turkey story of his first time ever bow hunting. And I told him just to prepare for disappointment. And he's told the story on the show before, but if you haven't heard it, he'll tell it later in the show. We've also got Joe Henry coming up with a Rainy River report. And also Erik Osberg is going to join us. In fact, Joe's going to join us next to talk about the Lake of the Woods and the Rainy River. Erik Osberg from Otter Tail Lakes Country will come on. And anytime you go turkey hunting or anytime you're in the outdoors this time of year, tick prevention is very, very important. So the Tick Terminator has some tips on keeping those ticks away. And he's all coming up on this week's show.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties, all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
All right, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on this station here by downloading the podcast or by watching this wherever you get your favorite podcasts or YouTube or Facebook or all that good stuff. It's our 499th show, ladies and gentlemen. We're celebrating number 500 next year. Next year. It's a long time between shows.
Wow.
It's one show a year, and we've been doing it 499 times. We're very old. We're going to be celebrating our 500th show next week up at Lake of the Woods at Riverbend Resort. And Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism has been with us for longer than anybody. And we love getting fishing reports from up there. And we're so excited to hear what you've got to say, because I know you're up at Lake of the Woods right now. We want to talk about the Rainy River. Everybody is just sitting on the edge of their seats right now waiting to find out how the ice is doing up there. But more importantly, you were up there for a fisheries advisory meeting today. What did you find out, Joe?
The Minnesota DNR puts together a Lake of the Woods Fisheries Advisory Council, basically to, not only hash out what's going on with the fishery, what are they finding out as far as, pressure on the lake, creel surveys, netting, seining, which are getting the small young of the year fish in the spring, all that information that they put together and try to get a good synopsis on what's happening with Lake of the Woods. And, there's a lot of people on Facebook that are experts, I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah.
But for me personally, I kind of made the comment, if we didn't have the DNR biologists who are out there working, every single day trying to put together an idea of what's going on with our fishery, everything would be it would be non-factual, right? It would be happenstance. And, they do, I think, a heck of a job putting together information. And there's different opinions when it comes to the DNR, but I'll tell you what, we sure feel lucky to have them. In a nutshell, we have a couple of year class of walleyes that we knew coming through were lower recruitment, meaning their spawning classes weren't real strong, and those are your 14 to 17 inch walleyes. So we know that we're not as high in the population of 14 to 17 inchers, but I'll tell you what, fish that are bigger than that and fish that are smaller than that, we're in really good shape. On top of it, taking a look at the pressure on the ice this year, all the statistics aren't in yet, but if you recall, last year we had approximately 2.7 million angling hours on our ice. This year, we believe that it's going to be more around 2.5 million. So just a little bit of a drop, but still extremely significant. This is kind of an interesting statistic. I always hear, or I see on Facebook, of course, but people say, how many houses are there, fish houses on Lake of the Woods? 5,000, 10,000. There's got to be 10,000 or more. I know there is. Well, my uncle told me that he talked to somebody and said there's 10,000 houses. Well, the DNR is out there counting and trying to get a good guesstimate based on everything they know. And they believe on the busiest of weekends, we probably have about 3,500 fish houses. And, if you figure out 3 people per house, we're looking at about approximately 10,500 people. And that would be on the busiest of weekends. So just to give you an idea of what kind of traffic, we have 4,000 people in Lake of the Woods County all by itself. So on any given day, we got 2.5 times that out on the ice.
Well, fishing pressure is obviously a topic of discussion right now when you look at some of the special regs that are going on some of the other bodies of water. It's an important thing, and not everybody thinks it's as important as it is, but that's what happens if you have too much pressure on a body of water. You could definitely hurt it in the long run as far as fish populations go. So it's important to have some of those regulations put in place so you have some sustainability. I know some of the limits have kind of changed in the last couple of years, and in spring went to catch and release on the Rainy River. Do you foresee any other changes coming out of this, out of the recent data?
No, the DNR does not see any changes coming here in the near future. And, again, they think that, they're not saying the lake is, better than ever, but it's better than many, many years. And they're also saying that the lake is very sustainable right now. So, if you take a look at the breeding fish, the mature males and mature females, we're in really good shape as far as those fish go. And that's our sustainability. They did say that when we get so much fishing pressure, let's say ice fishing, if you got 10 walleyes in a bathtub and you have 2 people fishing those 10 walleyes, and all of a sudden you double it, there's 4 people fishing. Some of what's happening is, you're simply reducing how many fish each person catches by the traffic on the ice. And that's some of what's going on. The other topic that I thought was very interesting, and this is coming from a biologist's perspective, but one thing that's very interesting is when they talk about mortality of little fish, there's a lot of talk about when you're catching these little fish while you're ice angling, how much mortality there is. And the topic was brought up, and it was real interesting because they say that, as an example, and this isn't a hard number, this is just an example number, but if you, right off the bat, small fish have a lot of mortality anyway. And then all of a sudden, let's say you have 15% mortality on small fish. Let's say that you're catching a lot of small fish out on the ice, and let's say that that's 5% mortality. The DNR biologists believe that 5% wouldn't be added to a normal 15% mortality. It figures into the whole equation. So that if you're getting 5% mortality, as an example, from catching little fish through the ice, that you're probably still going to have about a 15% mortality mark with small fish, because small fish are so susceptible to dying anyway for different things. So it just, the whole thing is very interesting hearing it from, a biologist's point of view. I know that not everybody's going to agree with everything the DNR says. And
what?
There's certainly
people don't?
Skepticism.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Right?
No. Yeah.
But it is very interesting to hear, their logic in it, and they're scientifically based, educated guesses on things, and they believe that the fishery is doing very, very well.
Well, they're the ones out there doing the research, right? I mean, it's easy to second guess the DNR. I don't agree with everything they do, and sometimes you scratch your head and be like, why are they doing this? There's obviously something going on that we don't know about, something nefarious, whatever. But they're the ones out there doing the research, right? They're the ones out there doing the surveys. They're the ones out there doing the seining and figuring things out. So it's what we've got, unless you're going to go out there and do your own research, you almost have to take their word. Not saying their word is correct every single time, but they're the ones, I mostly believe the biologists with their feet on the ground, the boots on the ground. They're the guys, that care about it and that are out there that went to school for it, that know about it. So Brad,
I'll say the other thing I'll say about it is, when they're doing all their figuring and things like that, they're about sustainability of the fishery, and they're cognizant of commerce and things like that, but it's no different than a resort owner. People might say, well, a resort owner, all they want to do is, catch as many fish as possible so their business is better. Quite honestly, what a normal resort owner wants is sustainability of the fishery, because without that fishery, they have very little.
Nothing,
Nothing. And so it's all about sustaining our fishery. And right now they feel like our fishery is in really good shape. The other thing I want to say is that when you get somebody putting out Facebook posts or putting reports on, Facebook pages or whatever about how, Lake of the Woods in trouble because there's too much fishing going on. What month do you think that those comments usually come out?
February. Spot
on. You take a look, it's always February, and that's a little bit of a tougher fishing month.
Yeah.
And you know what? You don't hear them in December because fishing, you're hearing about 50 to 100 fish days in December, so you wouldn't do that month. January is still pretty darn good. March, we're starting to melt already, and the feed bags starting to go on. You get out there in the boat and you start catching these walleyes, like, man, where were these freaking fish in February? So it's just very interesting. What part of this is based on what people are catching today, and what part of it is what's really going on with the lake? The other part of this equation that we don't talk about very much is just because you're not catching fish some days doesn't mean that the fish aren't there.
Yeah.
They might be in another part of the lake. They might have so much food that they're not feeding today. There might be pressure systems coming through that are causing these fish not to feed for a good period at a time. A lot of things going on out there,
Well, it was interesting when we were up there in February ice fishing, and we could not stop catching fish. I mean, it was pretty constant. There may be little lulls here and there, but granted, most of them were, smaller size sauger. Got a perch. We caught a. Well, it was mostly sauger, and then the next day, it was all sauger in the morning, and then all of a sudden in the afternoon, we caught a nice perch. We caught a nice pike. I caught like a 16-inch walleye. Like all of a sudden, something changed, and you could tell.
Nice crappie was caught?
Yeah, there was different fish, maybe just kind of roaming that basin, or the pressure had changed, or whatever. But it was clear that all of a sudden we were starting to catch some different fish that weren't there the day before or weren't biting the day before. So it's interesting how that works, and it's fishing. Even at Lake of the Woods, You're still fishing. Now, I want to know, why do they think there was bad recruitment for those 14 to 17 inchers that are out there right now? Do they have any theories on why there's fewer of those fish?
Well, I'd ask the question, can you take a look at spring weather patterns and determine what the recruitment of walleyes and how the spawning success was? And they said, we're kind of looking at that a little bit, but it's very unscientific at this point. But ultimately what happens is, when those eggs are laid, that water's got to warm up, and that water warms up, then those little eggs become little walleye embryos and such. And if we get a cold spring and that water stays real cold, it can really mess things up. So there wasn't much said about it, but when they show the patterns from different year classes, typically the patterns ebb and flow. There's good patterns, and they drop and they go up and they come down, and that's normally a sign of a good fishery. And that's really what we have going on up at Lake of the Woods. Now, we got a lot of small fish coming through the pipe too, as you know, but the future looks bright. I'll tell you, the other thing is, a lot of people would like to keep some of those big fish they catch that are in the slot. You got to take a picture of them and let them go. But man, I'll tell you, a lot of those big 25-inch walleyes, if those fish, if there wasn't a slot limit on them, those fish would be going home in coolers.
The slot's the best thing that happened to that lake, in my personal opinion. And according to the DNR, it sounds like walleyes are around 4 years old when they're 15 inches long. So if we were to look back 4 years ago and say, what were the conditions on the Rainy River? I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing ideas here, but maybe it was high water year, maybe a lot of current, maybe it was tough conditions for the spawn, or very cold water. I don't know. Maybe
4 and 5 year fish. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep.
Huh. Well, I'm looking forward to being on that Rainy River. Hopefully some more of the ice is gone by the time we talk next week, or by the time we're talking next week in person up at Riverbend Resort. It sounds like when we recorded this on Wednesday the 30th, River was getting close. The opening was getting close to Birchdale, Joe?
It's close, yeah. It's about, now it's Wednesday, we're speaking today Wednesday. It's a half mile east of the Birchdale access. And there are some people that are, they're taking safety precautions. They've done this before. They're guides, but they are pushing their 14 and 16-foot boats over the ice, get into that open water. They're catching fish upstream. But, we're waiting for that bigger Birchdale access to open up, and we're a half mile away. So, again, man, Mother Nature dictates it can go fast, but we've got some, days, during the days it's above freezing, and at night it's below freezing. So, it's nip and tuck.
Ah, dang it, man. 2 weeks ago, I looked at the weather forecast and it was all above zero forecasted with some temps in the mid 40s. I'm like, oh yeah, we're good. And then a week later, of course, it changed. And then there was like some below zero overnight temps. And I was like, oh gosh. So we've got this Fish Donkey fishing tournament coming up on the Rainy here, and people are just waiting. They're just waiting to sign up. They're waiting to make reservations because it's probably going to be a game time decision. So we got our fingers crossed. We're looking forward to it. And this tournament is going to be all on the U.S. side. You have to stay on the U.S. side for the tournament purposes. But guys can fish the Ontario side, Joe?
We're getting some questions from anglers. Hey, Joe, if I want to go fish the Canada side of the Rainy River, can I do that? And the answer to that is, yes, you can. However, you can boat over to the Ontario side of Lake of the Woods without calling in to check in with customs. But if you do that, you got to, you can't touch land, touch a dock. You can't exchange goods and services with anybody. You got to have an Ontario fishing license. You can't bring any kind of live or dead bait over with you. You can't have any alcohol in your boat. Now, Ontario, I believe, has a one fish limit in the spring where you can keep one walleye that's 18.1 inches or greater. Now, with that being said, you are not allowed to boat over to Ontario, catch a keeper walleye that's keeper over there, and it's legal, and boat across closed waters. And technically, catch and release only is considered closed waters. So you're not allowed to go catch a walleye in Ontario with an Ontario license, keep it, and then come across closed waters on the U.S. side, to get back to your landing. So if a person technically, and you're not going to do this, but if a person technically really wanted to go over and catch one keeper walleye, they literally have to trailer across into Ontario, drop in on the Ontario side of the river, catch their walleye and pull their boat out and come back across and go through customs with it. So that's just, people are asking that question, so I wanted to give the info. But the one thing that is new that people might not be familiar with is that if you're traveling from the U.S. into Canada via, whether it's car or boat or anything, you cannot bring bait, live bait at all, live or dead bait, into Ontario waters or into Canada. That used to be different. It used to be that back in the day, just, prior to, I think, of October 2020, I believe it was, you could bring in, like night crawlers that were in bedding and not soil. You could bring in dead minnows or frozen minnows. That is not the case anymore. No live or dead bait across at all.
So that 18.1 inches, I saw you cock your head a little bit there, Dan. That's because they go by centimeters. And
well, it wasn't that. It was the fact it's 18.1 or greater. You'd think it'd be it'd be less for
interesting
for this time of year, but no, you can't. Canada's got their rules. They've got their own scientists, and
so. Bottom line, out of all of that, if you're going to fish, from the U.S., don't keep a fish on the Ontario side. That's
you just don't want to. If you're fishing the Rainy River in the spring, just plan on not keeping any fish. You don't need to. And you know what? If you're on the U.S. side, you can use live bait or dead bait. If you're on the Ontario side and you're boating across, no bait at all. No live or dead bait if you're going into Canada waters.
Well, looking forward to it next week, the 500th show from the Rainy River. We got a tournament on Fish Donkey. We're watching the ice as it slowly opens up. I've got no doubt we're going to have fishable ice. Might get a little busy at the boat ramp, so just plan for it. Be patient. We're not starting the tournament until 9 a.m., so you got plenty of time to get out there and get your boat ready and get in the water. She's going to be a little brisk. It's going to be a little cool up there, but it's an unbelievable fishery in the spring. Joe, if people want to find out more about the Rainy River or planning a summer trip to Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
You know what? For real-time info, Facebook and Instagram, you know what? You want to find out more about lodging and such, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Northern Minnesota's Walleye Factory is a year-round world-class fishing destination. The perfect getaway this summer is just a short drive to Lake of the Woods. Fish Big Traverse Bay, the Rainy River, or visit the unique Northwest Angle. To catch big fish, you have to go where the big fish are. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, welcome back. I'm Brett Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here on the Sporting Journal Radio Network by downloading the podcast or by watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever else you're getting this content. Thank you very much. I went turkey hunting one year in North Dakota a while back, and I remember sitting down against a tree. You're turkey hunting. That happens a lot. And I was sitting there for a little bit, and I had some toms off in the distance that I was trying to coax into range. And so I'm not really paying attention to where I'm sitting. And all of a sudden I felt something crawling on my neck, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's a wood tick. Pull that off, flick it. All of a sudden I feel something else crawling. All of a sudden I look down. I must have sat on some sort of nest, because I didn't stop counting until I was over 100 pulling ticks off me. It was bad. It was a bad deal. And ticks are no joke. And it's that time of year. I saw a post come up on social media the other day. A guy had already pulled a couple of ticks off of his dog here in southwestern Minnesota. So we're going to talk about tick prevention now, and we're going to bring the Tick Terminator on the show, Brian Anderson. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Love talking about ticks.
Gosh, I don't. I don't like them. But it's necessary to talk about them, especially for guys that go turkey hunting or guys that own dogs or anyone that spends time in the outdoors in the spring. Ticks, you're going to run into ticks, and it's something that you need to take very seriously, isn't it?
Absolutely. Springtime is the time when they really come out, but they're out until snow falls in November. Sometimes heavier than others, other times, but they're definitely all out there.
When I spent a lot of time in northwestern Wisconsin, and we spent a lot of time hunting, grouse hunting or deer hunting, waterfowl hunting, we ran into them a lot in the fall. I'll be honest, here in western Minnesota, thankfully, I don't see them as often in the fall, but in the spring, it seems like there's been more and more of them every year. Maybe I'm spending more time in the outdoors too, but I see them more and more every year, it seems like.
Springtime is the most active time of the year. You got to understand, of course, because they've been kind of hibernating, for the last several months, and they come out and they're hungry, like a bear looking for food. The worst ones that really get us the most are called a little nymph tick. That means they were born last summer, and now they're the size of a poppy seed. I mean, think about how small that is. They can get on your shoes, your shoelaces. They can be a speck on your skin, and you can't even hardly notice them. So it's really, really important to prevent them and protect yourself from them. That's for sure. And that small, I was going to say that small, they can be just as lethal as a full-grown adult.
I don't like them.
If they got Lyme disease, right there. You can see on the far left is a newborn. The second one is a nymph tick that I'm talking about right there, and that is teeny tiny. Yep.
Where are you out of, Brian?
Iron Mountain in the Upper Peninsula.
Okay.
Uper.
So, I mean, that's almost northern Wisconsin-ish too. I heard
on the border.
I heard a theory one time about why Wisconsin, because we always talked about. We were in Polk County, and we always heard that northwestern part of Wisconsin is one of the worst parts for deer ticks and Lyme disease. And you would know better than I would, but that's what we always heard. I also heard that one of the theories was that you could look at a map of where Lyme disease has affected people and almost follow 94 through the center part of Wisconsin as it cuts across Wisconsin, because of all the deer hunters that would put deer on the back of their, on top of their trucks or on their cargo carriers on the back, and then the ticks would jump off these deer as they're ripping down the interstate and then spread out, and that's how a lot of them traveled. Have you ever heard that before?
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Ticks don't really jump or fly or, drop from trees like a lot of people think. They're basically opportunists. They're going to be on little low-lying grass and brush, and they're just waiting for somebody to come along that's got blood. It could be us, could be an animal, and they're like hitchhikers. Yeah.
Gross.
And like the picture right there, that is a female giving birth. So, and they do that in the summertime.
Really?
Yep,
that's
definitely.
What that is. Wow, gross. Well, and maybe they were just blown off the back of the trucks too. Who knows? I don't know. That's quite the theory, but I don't like them. I know my dog brings them in the house a lot, and I actually, getting prepared for this, we were talking about ticks and Lyme disease, and then I dreamt about 2 giant engorged ticks on my dog, and I was like, oh, I got to film this for the show tomorrow. So thanks for giving me dreams about big old ticks.
I think that's called a nightmare.
Yeah. That's right. What got you so interested in tick prevention?
Well, I've always kind of had a weird fascination with ticks since I was a little kid. I lived way downstate Michigan at the time, and we'd come up to the Upper Peninsula here to visit my grandparents, and they had ticks here. And I remember them getting on us on occasion. Mom would do a tick check on us, which is very important to do at the end of every day and during tick season. And she would pull them off of us like 5, 6 years old, and we never had a problem with them. Never talked about Lyme disease, anything like that. Fast forward to numerous years after that, probably actually like 10 years ago, I really started looking into them more because my wife just hates them, and nobody loves them anyways.
Yeah.
I got a buddy that almost died from Lyme disease, and he was just so weak because we all know what Lyme disease does to people. And I just started looking into how can I prevent these? I would bring them in the house and in the basement and do testing with them and play with them, for different smells, baking soda and different repellents, see how I could repel them. So one thing led to another, and I find out that a lot of information out there about Lyme disease, but very little about prevention. So that's what really got me looking into that. And then I finally bumped into this product called permethrin, which is absolutely, by far, without question, the best repellent that you can get for ticks out there on the market.
Yeah,
that's been.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say you actually recommend using a combination of permethrin and DEET?
Correct. That is the best PPE, it's a new word to us, personal protective equipment that you could possibly use. DEET on the skin, permethrin on your clothes and gear. And that you can't do anything better than that unless you stay inside and never go out.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen, obviously. And
yeah, I know.
I've always, I understand that there's variations of bugs and, all across the world. I always thought of there being essentially 2 here in the upper Midwest where I'm at. There's 10 to 15, I understand, in the United States now. And the one, like Lyme disease is no joke, and that scares me. But the Lone Star, what is it? The Lone Star tick? I like to eat steak. That one scares me a lot.
Yeah, because that can give you what they call alpha-gal syndrome. But one thing for you, since we live in upper Midwest, that is mostly in the southeastern on the Atlantic shoreboard, like the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia, and that area. It's more prevalent there than it is here.
Right.
Yeah, hunters, they don't want to get that because we like to eat our red meat.
Yeah, it's a red meat allergy. That's just crazy to me.
That's a bad one.
I know a few people that have either been affected or their dogs have gotten it, or they have spouses or family members that might have it, and it's hard to diagnose. And it's hard to diagnose, and it's best if you get to it early, and that's the problem, right? People don't get it diagnosed soon enough.
Absolutely. They call Lyme disease the great imitator because it mimics so many other diseases. Because what's going to happen is say somebody gets bit and they have a bad reaction. The bite really swells up. You may get bullseye rash, they call it, or you feel achy joints, flu-like symptoms. They're a perfect example right there. If you see any of those symptoms, you don't want to think about seeing a doctor. You want to go to a doctor for sure, because in a lot of cases in our area, they're going to put you on an antibiotic, which is called doxycycline. Mm-hmm. I'm not a doctor, and I don't play one on TV, but that's the most important thing, like you said there. Early detection and early treatment is the absolute most important thing to do, for sure.
So I want
Absolutely.
I turkey hunted last year and did not protect myself with permethrin like an idiot, and wanted to, kept saying I was going to do it, and then just never treated my clothes, never did it. All my buddies up there that I hunted with, they all had it. Didn't deal with the situation that I dealt with. I pulled ticks off every night, and then you're not really going to be able to see this in the picture, but and I'm not even on the screen anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, there you go. So I got bit by what I would consider a deer tick. I didn't find it till the next morning, and it was stuck into me, and that was kind of on my chest area, and it left that mark. Now, obviously, the thing it bit into me, so you're going to have a little bit of a mark after something bites into you like that. But I was like, okay, this is not cool. It's not the prototypical bullseye. But my buddy's like, you go directly to the doctor. Do not pass go. Go directly to the doctor and ask for doxycycline immediately. So that's what I did. And the doctor's like, well, and I said, no, give me the doxycycline and thank you very much. And that's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot, just a safety thing there. Not all of them have it. You know, now a deer tick is going to look like this right here. Their coloration, of course, I've got a stuffed tick. I've even got a baby tick here too. You know, I mean, I'm the Tick Terminator. You got to be a little weird, crazy. You know.
Yeah.
So I use this for demonstration purposes. Think about this: if you do have a tick on you, let's say it's stuck on you like this, okay? The way you pull it off is even important too, because Brett, you don't want to tick off a tick. All right.
I see what you did there.
If you make it mad, it's more apt to puke the bad stuff in you. So you don't want to play around a lot with it. You want to use a fine-tip tweezers and pull it straight up, okay? You don't want to really grab it by the body like we all have done, all right? So you want to take it gently off. When you have it off, I don't care if you use a sledgehammer, a 30-06 to it, or whatever you want to do.
Lighter.
But yeah.
I burn them. I burn every single one.
Yeah.
Burn them.
I actually taught my grandkids what to do with a tick when they get it off, with a little magnifying glass. You know how you can make it so you can smoke them. You know?
That's awesome.
Do that on the sidewalk.
I have, and this, I don't have a girlfriend now. This is going to deter me from ever getting one. I have an I have an ashtray in my kitchen next to my kitchen sink, and every tick I pull off me or my dog goes in that ashtray and immediately gets burnt till it pops. Hands down,
really?
Every time. So by the middle of summer, if you look next to my sink in my kitchen, it's just like a tick graveyard, like incinerator.
Well, hopefully this year, since you have some permethrin now, you're going to have a heck of a lot less.
Yeah.
My mom and dad used to pick them off the dog. They'd put them in a styrofoam cup, then they put them in a microwave. You know, their record was 163 one days.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's important. I think a lot of times people don't realize just how tough those ticks are, and you can, pinch them or smash them or toss them or whatever, and they're just gonna, most of the time, they're gonna stay alive and just keep crawling and find some other host to terrorize.
Yeah.
So you wrote something called The Hidden Cost of Lyme Disease. What are the hidden costs?
Well, think about this. When somebody has such a debilitating illness, for example, they may miss out on the kid's soccer game. Okay? You don't think about that. You may eventually lose your job because you're so weak, you just can't hardly function. While you're on your job, you may not be able to do it as well because there's so many different symptoms. I mean, people have neurological symptoms along with motor skill symptoms. Sometimes they get Bell's palsy, which is kind of like half your face hanging down. People have lost marriages, relationships, things like that. Those are kind of hidden costs that we don't normally think about.
Yeah.
The financial costs can be just atrocious. It's terrible. I mean, people have spent anywhere, because if somebody does not realize that they have Lyme disease, and sometimes it's hard to figure it out. They may go through 3, 4, 5, 10 different doctors before it's finally diagnosed properly. And the money that goes into that. I mean, people spend anywhere from a few hundred to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then the treatment is terrible. It's expensive.
It's a lifestyle that I don't wish on anybody because it's debilitating. Do you have any thoughts on the discussion of I hate calling it a conspiracy theory, but it's usually the term that gets thrown around when you talk about it. But there's some discussions about Lyme disease and the medical community, and I know you know what I'm talking about, right? Whether or not it's legitimate, or if you can actually treat it, or that whole situation.
Yeah, so often it's for doctors who sometimes will accuse their patients of just, hey, it's all in your head.
Right.
It's so hard to pinpoint. And another sad thing is that a lot of insurance companies don't classify it as a real illness, so they don't cover the costs.
Yeah.
So it's now. I think we're starting to see a turn in that. So that's helpful for people.
Well, and I think if you do some Google searches, the CDC comes up in some of the talks, and I don't know. I'm just talking about what I've seen on the internet, and I believe everything I read on the internet. But there's also some people have said that maybe, what is it, ALS maybe is similar to Lyme disease. Am I getting that right?
Could be.
There's some big name.
Fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis.
Fibromyalgia for sure.
Yeah, it gets confused with those. That's why I call it the great imitator, because just like somebody sucked the energy right out of your body.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to bring up duration is something that you recommend.
Yeah. Yep.
And what is that?
Got it right there. Yep.
Okay.
That is what's he showing right there on the little bottle. There is a bottle of concentrate, and you have a little measuring cup on the top of there. Inside that box is a 32-ounce bottle that you just, depending on how many cups you pour in there, right there, is how long that's going to last. Now, what I do is I pour about 4 cups in that 32-ounce bottle, fill it with water, and that's good for 12 weeks. All right? You can buy permethrin over the, like Cabela's and Walmart, stuff like that, and it's good for 6 weeks and 6 washes, which is wonderful. Most deterrents, repellents are good for a few hours, and you got to do it every day. But permethrin, it actually, when it's sprayed on, it binds to the fabric, and it stays through washings also. So the cool thing about what he's just showed there is that's a concentrate that puts the user in charge of how long it's going to last. So it's pretty nice. It can last for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 9 weeks, up to 24 weeks.
Wow. And kind of just walk us through quickly the process of how you use that then.
So you just mix it, into the bottle, fill it with water, shake it up, and then you spray it on your clothes. Now, it's best to do that outside, let's say on a clothesline, like what he's doing right there outside. How well it's going to work on rubber boots, I'm not sure. But
he coats everything with the stuff.
Hey, that's fine. You know what I mean? It's not going to hurt him anyway, that's for sure. But spray it on the clothes. I actually, right on my website, I talk about that too, the tickterminator.com. But you spray it on your clothes until you can start to see them turn dark a little bit because they're getting wet. And do both sides all over on them. Do boots also, because a lot of times ticks get on your boots first and your socks. I kind of classify, let's say turkey hunters, they have their turkey hunting clothes that they're going to wear every day for that season. So they spray them all up really good, and they're good for the season,
So
let it dry overnight.
Okay. That was my next. So you spray it and let her dry.
Yep. You can actually use it when it's wet, because I work with a lot of power companies, and their linemen, I mean, I don't recommend this, but they're going to get out of the truck, spray right down, and then they're going to walk through the grass. It'll work that way too. It's just more convenient when it's all dry on you.
Sure. Do you hang it outside to dry, or does that help at all? Does it matter?
I do it outside. I mean, sometimes I'll do it in my basement, so, but anyways, probably shouldn't say that, but I do that. But hey, don't do it around cats. Cats, unless you don't like the cats.
So do it around cats is what you're saying. Okay.
Now, dogs are fine. I mean, a lot of people say, can I use it on my dog? Well, yeah, you can, but there's so many other good things for dogs out there. But yeah, it's really hard on cats. They have a totally different makeup than dogs and everything else.
Interesting. So it's also a cat repellent. Perfect. Okay. And then,
it may really hurt them.
And then do you wear gloves when you spray this stuff down? You try to keep the permethrin off your skin?
If you want. I don't normally, but you don't spray it on your skin. I'm glad you brought up skin there, because if you do spray it on your skin, your natural oils will just dissipate it after about 15, 20 minutes, and then it's useless.
Okay.
So
DEET on the skin, permethrin on the clothes, spray it, let it dry overnight, and then you've got the best protection you can have. You got all the directions on your website as well, too, the tickterminator.com. It's a serious thing, and now that turkey season is here and temperatures are starting to warm up, we're going to start hearing about ticks more and more. The tickterminator.com. Brian Anderson, appreciate the time today on the show. Is there anything else you wanted to say to our listeners / viewers?
I'll end with a poem. How's that?
A poem?
This might be the first poem ever said on the show.
A poem about ticks. All right, here we go.
Here's how it goes. I hate them little suckers. I want to terminate them all. So I do it with permethrin and love to watch them fall. From head to toe, I spray myself, my shoes, socks, clothes, and hats, because it works on more than ticks, like skeeters, chiggers, and even gnats. So I ask you, if you're listening, to keep away from Lyme, get started with permethrin, and now is the perfect time. Thank you.
Hey, very good. I like it. The crowd goes wild. The first poem on Sporting Journal Radio. Very good. Brian Anderson, the tickterminator.com. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Devil's Lake is legendary, and this summer has been legendary for walleyes. Don't miss out. Call Haybale Heights Campground and Resort today to book one of their modern cabins on East Bay. The cabins are furnished with a full bathroom, kitchen, and all the amenities like high-speed internet, and are clean following CDC guidelines. Staying at Haybale Heights gives you full access to a private boat launch, fish cleaning station, and beach area. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Plan your trip to legendary Devil's Lake today.
Well, by now you've heard of the new regulations on Mille Lacs Lake. One fish, 21 to 23 inches, and it's open, I think, for a little bit, a couple weeks, and then it closes completely, and then it's catch and release. Follow along, read all about it at sportingjournalradio.com. And when you've got a lake like that, that's a world-class fishery, and you're that close to the Twin Cities, it's going to get a lot of pressure on it. And what happens, and we're starting to see it on other bodies of water too, what happens when you get a lot of fishing pressure on a body of water, you're going to end up with more regulations and smaller limits. And it's starting to spread to other species as well too. And we learned about it a couple years ago with the Quality Bluegill Initiative when we filmed that Prairie Sportsman episode with Garrett Severe, and there's been some experimental regulations on different lakes. Well, that's been expanded, and there's some new regs on different bodies of water when it comes to bluegills, crappies, other panfish. And we're going to talk about it right now with Erik Osberg from Otter Tail Lakes Country, because that's panfish paradise up there, Erik, and you've got some bodies of water in your county that are being affected as well.
It is. You're absolutely right. And you mentioned Garrett Severe, and I learned this from Garrett Severe one of the first times I fished with him. He self-regulates. He's a good self-regulator, right? So he was the one that taught me the 9-inch rule. And I was pretty new to the world of bluegill fishing. And he was like, any bluegill that is 9 inches or bigger, it's going back. Right?
Yeah.
And I believe he does. I don't want to speak for him, but I believe he does that with his clients as well. And Garrett's specialty is trophy bluegills, right? And so in our area, in Otter Tail County, these are small lakes. I mean, there's times where I'm fishing a body of water that might be 400 acres or less. And the fishing pressure that you talk about is, it wouldn't take long if word got out on that about a hot bite on that small lake, it could get beat up pretty bad, especially if you're looking at, what is normally a 20 fish limit. You got 4 or 5 anglers, that's 100 bluegills coming out of the water. Whereas if you're down to a 5 or a 10, you're talking 20. That's a pretty big deal. So yeah, the new regs are out. The 2022 regulations are out. I would encourage people to read the regulation book, and the DNR actually has a very useful website. It's DNR or mndnr.gov/sunfish. And I think that's the right address, mndnr.gov/sunfish.
One of those state websites with a lot of dots and letters and stuff. But if you Google it, I'm sure you could find it.
If you Google it, you can find it, and it is super useful. I was really pleased when I saw it that all I had to do was find my region. We're in the Northwest region, and then they've got the bodies of water listed by
county,
by county, and by the closest DNR regional office. So there's like there, you guys found it. You're good at Googling. So if you scroll down a little bit, there's right under the fold, there's a tab that says lakes with QSI regulations, and then you can see the lakes in Otter Tail County that have special regulations for 2022.
Did they change it from QBI to Quality Sunfish Initiative now?
They might. I don't know what it used to be, but it's Quality Sunfish. I think I don't want to speculate as to why, but when you look at the reg book, it's pumpkin seeds and
they're all sunfish.
They're all sunfish, right?
Makes sense.
It's if the limit is 10, you can't have 5 bluegills and 10 pumpkin seeds. Yeah. It's 10 sunfish. So.
I mean, it definitely makes sense. Every time I've heard about it, it was a Quality Bluegill Initiative, but this is probably more biologically correct. And you said and I know when we filmed with Garrett, we were in Otter Tail County, but we made a point of not naming the lakes that we were on. We fished a couple of different lakes up there. Locals will recognize them, but we, unless we're doing stuff on Mille Lacs or Lake of the Woods or something like that, I'm generally okay with not naming lakes because I know what that can do to a lake, and particularly when you got a vulnerable population of, say, trophy fish, you really don't want to. You want to protect them as much as you can, and obviously you've got some great fishing in Otter Tail County, and it's important to protect it.
It is, and as a, if it's my job to promote the area, I can't ignore the fact that we have world-class pan fishing. I think that's one of our assets. I think that's a big reason that people come and visit and live here. But at the same time, I think it's the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. Doctors, rule number 1 is do no harm. So as I'm promoting this area as a place to fish, I'm cognizant of the fact that I do not want to harm these fisheries. Yeah. I don't want people to overfish them. I don't want there to be more people, more pressure than any of these lakes can handle. The good news, and I don't want to sound like a salesman, but the good news is there's over 1,000 lakes in Otter Tail County, and you can't fish them all. They don't have all have public accesses, but even there's many a Friday night or there's many a Saturday when I will be the only one on a body of water, and if I'm not the only one, I'll be one of 2 or 3 boats, and so I can't hide the fact that we have excellent pan fishing opportunities. But I am worried. I don't want to be the reason that the fishing is worse this year than it was last year. But again, if we can all kind of follow Garrett's lead and self-regulate, right? It helps a lot. And I would say step 1 is knowing the rules. Know what body of water am I on, and does this lake have special regulations? And if so, how do I follow?
So it looks, and obviously we encourage everybody to read the regs, but it looks like a lot of the regulations, these special regulations, lower that limit to either 5 or 10 on a specific lake. That doesn't reduce your possession limit. So if you do bounce around to different lakes, you can still keep 20 in your possession, but only 5 or 10 or whatever the specific regs are for that lake will apply. I know it doesn't look like there's any sort of slot limits or anything like that. I know people have pushed for slot 2, and maybe that'll happen, or nothing over 9 or 9.5 or whatever the case may be. But for now, it's just a daily limit of 5 or 10 on these specific lakes.
And that's a good. Go ahead.
Do you think they'll put signs up at the landings?
I think they do.
I sure hope so.
Yeah,
I sure hope so. And to your point, Brett, there are some size regs on crappies. Like you'll see some lakes with a minimum size. Some I think the Lida lakes, for example, might have a 10-inch minimum or something like that, so bluegills, as far as I know, it's basically, to your point, Brett, about the number of fish. But then with crappies, there are some size limits, either minimum or maximum requirements on size that people need to be mindful of as well.
I got asked about this the other day, and Garrett can explain it, and biologists can explain it better than I can. But when you take out too many of those trophy bluegills, all of a sudden, because they're, especially during, the spawning season, and when they're protecting the nest, you take that bigger fish out, a smaller fish replaces it, and that starts to lower the genetic size of the fish in the lake. It's something along those lines. So when someone says, well, they're bluegills, what's the big deal? That's the big deal. If you want to catch those 10, 11 inchers, if you start keeping those fish, they're hard to replace, and some lakes will never replace them if you take them all out. So there's some biology involved there that's above my pay grade. That's important for these people to know. It's important for that message to get out there.
And I've done a few stories with the DNR, and so I've spent time with Garrett to get the angler's perspective, and not that the DNR aren't anglers as well, but I've spent time with them, and there's kind of two main reasons. And to Garrett's point, the genetics are important, right? Like you get the genetics of a big, huge bluegill. You want those genetics to be passed on. But the other thing is the lifespan of a bluegill. They can live 18 to 20 years. Okay. And they grow at about an inch a year. So that 10-inch bluegill might only be 10 years old, and they've got maybe 7 or 8 more years of, as the king of the crop in the reproductive system. So when you think about the lifespan of a bluegill as 20 years, they grow an inch a year, and they've reached their full size at halfway point. They've got half of their life left to be reproducing. The other thing that taking those big bluegills out of the system does is little bluegills, okay? If little bluegills want to reproduce, they have to compete with those big bluegills. So they have to put their energy into growth. They don't get to reproduce until they become the big bluegill, right? So they're spending their youth growing and eating and growing and eating. You start taking those big bluegills out, now those smaller bluegills can put energy into reproduction at an earlier age, thereby stunting the growth of the population. So whether it's their genetics or whether it's their growth / life / reproduction cycle, there's a lot of reasons that I get sick to my stomach. I've seen people keep big bluegills, and I'm so overly protective now. I get a little sick to my stomach. I've seen stringers of big bluegills, and I'm like, oh, that's so sad. But yeah. I get it, right? Like it's within it's not against the rule. It's legal. I mean, and to each their own. But I just want people to know what impact that's having on the fishery.
And I think a lot of people just don't know. And I didn't know. I haven't fished for bluegills since I was, 8 years old, with dangling my feet off the end of the dock, and I remember catching one. It was about 10 and a half inches. I caught it 7 or 8 years ago. And I remember freaking out. I was like, we're bluegill fishing, whatever. They taste good. We'll catch a few for the frying pan. And I caught a big one. I remember seeing it in the hole, and I actually went shoulder deep to scoop it out and was pretty excited about it. And like, well, this is going to taste delicious. And it was 10 and a half inches. And I got just trashed for doing it, and I was like, well, I didn't know anything about it. Like I hadn't caught a bluegill in probably 25 years because I just never cared about them really that much. I have learned so much in the last couple of years about bluegills due to this Quality Bluegill Initiative that, I'm not real happy with myself. I was one. I kept one, and, I don't want to keep any of them anymore, but I didn't know. And I think that's the case for a lot of people.
It is. And I've probably bored you with this story before, but my boy's biggest bluegill, my boy's personal best bluegill is 11 inches. And if you take out a ruler and you look at 11 inches, like it doesn't even seem possible when you see it on a ruler. How could a bluegill get that big? And this was a few years ago. We were with Garrett when he caught it. And we, talking at that time, he was probably 6 or 7. Talking your 7-year-old son into releasing an 11-inch bluegill is a hard conversation to have, but it's important. And I was guiding. I'm not a professional guide, but I play one on the weekends sometimes. But I was guiding one weekend, and I had a group with me, and I was explaining, and we had kids with us. And I set the tone right away. I said, "Listen, folks, we're looking for 8 to 8.5 inch bluegills. That's the keeper zone, and we want to keep them variety because you don't want to just take every 8.5 inch out. But we're looking for a certain size, and if we get one that's 9 inches or bigger, we're going to put it back." And the kids were like, "Well, why would we do that?" And then I got to explain to them, "Well, that's a mommy fish or that's a daddy fish, and we want that mommy and daddy fish, So again,
oh boy, that's a discussion you don't need to have with kids sometimes.
we didn't go that far with it, but by the end of the trip, they understood, or at least they weren't hesitant to throw a 9.5 inch bluegill back. They were like, "This is a big one. I think it's going back."
Oh, that's great.
And so it's
education.
Have more people talk about it, and getting some education out there helps.
Well, and the discussion I've had with people on so many levels, from walleyes to crappies to pike and lake trout. In this day and age, you don't need to catch your limit every day to have a couple of great meals of fried fish or however you want to cook it. You don't need to put that trophy on the wall anymore to show it off to your friends or to stare at it, and be proud of it the rest of your life and say, "Yep, I caught the big one in the lake." You can take a great photo of it now, and you can get a replica made. So the days of keeping all those big fish are gone. It's just not necessary anymore, and it's going to trickle down to every species, and that's why you're seeing people target so many other fish too, like burbot or whitefish and tullabees. Is people are experiencing the joy of fishing and feeling that tug on the end of your line and not depleting the resource at the same time. And a little education goes a long way when you need to convince somebody of that.
Did you ever watch G.I. Joe when you were a kid? Remember the cartoon G.I. Joe?
Of course.
Yeah. Knowing is half the battle.
Knowing is half the battle.
Wasn't that in every episode or something? Like, I loved G.I. Joe when I was a kid, but knowing is half the battle. And if we can just get more people to know, that's half the battle. The rest of it, time will tell.
Well, everybody should know what's going on with limits and check your regs. We've got a lot of stuff listed at sportingjournalradio.com. Of course, you can check out the DNR website. And if you want to learn more about fishing in Ottertail Lakes Country, what should they do, Eric?
They can find their inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
Did you know there are more than 1,000 lakes in Ottertail County?
Yep, and I'm going to fish as many as I can. I'm an outdoorsy otter. Nothing beats a full day of fishing for me. The lakes of Ottertail County give me plenty of options to lower my boat and snag the perfect catch. Not an outdoorsy otter? No problem. Ottertail County has something for everyone. You just need to find your inner otter.
To find your inner otter, go to ottertaillakescountry.com. All right, thanks for tuning in on this station right here on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, downloading this podcast. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube, Facebook. I don't know what we're going to get ourselves into right now. This may be the most people we've ever had on the show at one time, and it's a great group of guys, and this could be an epic show. It's our 499th show, and a lot of these people were going to be on the 500. 500 show next week too. So this might be an example of what we might be getting ourselves into.
Nobody's going to come now.
Yeah, probably not. But just in case, since the river is still kind of frozen up there, we figured we'd have you guys on a week early anyway. And next week's going to be a lot of talk about fishing. This week we want to talk about turkey hunting. So we've got let's see, we got Sam Soholt, we got Cory Loeffler, and Rue, and Ben Brettingen and Thor Nelson, and then there's Dan and David right there too. Did we get everybody? Okay, good. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Don't everybody talk at once. Okay, good.
2 thumbs up.
Good, great. Cory, how's Rue doing?
She's good. She's tightening up her motherly figure now after the puppies are weaned and gone, and I think she's loving life because she's not being chased around by 8 wild little yellow labs anymore. So she's just hanging out. We're just living the call shop life right now.
How is that moment for you the day the last pup leaves? Because everything's it's probably pretty chaotic while they're around. I know it's a lot of work, but you probably enjoy it. It's probably a little sad when they all leave.
Yeah, super sad, knowing that I am too full of dogs right now, so I couldn't keep one because I really, really wanted one of them, but had to just send them on their way. But oh man, the homes that they all went to are absolutely top notch. Like, couldn't be better. So we're super excited for them. We've got a little private Facebook group with all the puppy owners, so we can keep updated as they post pictures and videos of their progress and stuff. So it's really cool. My girls took it pretty hard, I guess, but that's part of it. So we just are super excited for all the pups and their forever homes, and just pumped to watch them do the things that they're going to do.
I'm sure they get real attached to having them around, and the whole family gets involved when you're working with those pups, I know. So I'm sure they're pretty sad when they leave. You were down in Texas. You had a puppy delivery to Texas, and while you're down there, you went turkey hunting.
Yeah, I flew the little yellow-collared male down to Houston, dropped him off, jumped in with JJ Gustafson, Lifetime Decoys. We went on a wild turkey chase. They didn't end up getting any turkeys down in south of Houston. Stopped at a couple ranches. We called at and located a bunch of turkeys, except they were just on the neighbors' ranches, so we didn't end up shooting a turkey. But every about half hour, we'd be walking through the woods trying to locate turkeys, and we'd run up on some pigs. So we got plenty of shooting in, just no turkeys. A lot of bacon though, so it was good.
Hey, that's probably a lot more meat than you get off a turkey anyway.
Yeah, absolutely it was.
I know you've chased pigs around with Sam down there before. Sam, you just bought a new place in Fargo, is that right?
Sure did. Yeah, it's Austin of the North, as they call it.
Austin of the North. All right. So you know what? You have more patience than I do, because I think when I move, I'm just in such a hurry to get everything into the house and then I try to fix stuff up or clean stuff up after everything's in. It looks like you're moving in stages and actually refinishing floors before you move all the furniture in, which is probably the smart way to do it.
Well, yeah, we have a rental right now, and our lease isn't up until the end of May. And so we were able to just work on a bunch of projects prior to moving all of our furniture in. So I didn't really want to do the floors, but they kind of needed to be refinished. And so a quick trip to Menards and a rental. And I have been walking behind a power sander and an edger for a day and a half now. So as soon as the podcast is done, I'll be right back to sanding until it's all cleaned off. I got one more round of the 80 grit left on the whole thing. And then I should be able to clean it all up and start finishing hopefully tomorrow.
Now, do you still have raccoon traps out while you're doing this, or did you take a break from trapping?
Well, this week with the weather coming in that we just had last night and all the house projects, I took a 5-day break, but next Monday I'll be back out.
those traps I think are great because that's as someone that has dogs, and when you hear about there's traps out there, the first thing you do is get a little bit nervous about it. But you got dog-proof traps set up out there.
Yeah, they're pretty slick. I hadn't really heard about them until a couple years ago. Some of the guys kind of in the turkey world, Dave Owens, Catman, some of those guys down south started to do this little thing, save, like whatever the hashtag was, save the poults. And they were using these dog-proof raccoon traps. And I was like, man, those are super interesting. And then, as time has gone on, have just learned more about how devastating raccoons are and ground nest predators are on turkey populations, duck populations, especially in the prairie pothole region, pheasants, quail, anything that nests on the ground. And thought might as well add another season to the year and start trapping.
Yeah. Well, it looks a lot of fun. I know you got a big trapping. What do you got? Raccoon camp? Is that what you call it?
Well, so we had to cancel it. Originally it was going to be this coming weekend and had invited a whole pile of people from all over the country. And the project was going to be kind of raising awareness about ground nest predators and, what you can do to kind of like help bird populations in your area. And then found out that non-residents cannot kill raccoons in the state of North Dakota.
What?
Yeah. What? Yeah. So we started planning for next year already. I think we're going to do it down. Josh, my brother, and I are going to host it. I think we're going to host it down in Nebraska, as long as everyone can shoot them down there, or South Dakota non-residents can hunt them until the end of or middle of March, I believe. But there's some different places that we can do it. So we're trying to figure out the best spot to do it where we can have the most impact and, maybe beat a little bit of the weather and beat some of the seasons before people are kind of too busy turkey hunting.
Interesting. I did not know that. That's,
I didn't either.
There's always some weird things when I suppose, are they considered fur bearer? I suppose there's always some weird rules about fur bearers.
Yeah,
by state.
You haven't been able to trap non-residents haven't been able to trap in North Dakota for quite a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been a pretty long-standing rule.
And I would imagine that that the law was written to protect people that were making their livelihood on trapping.
Sure.
And not in the too distant future or past, there were raccoon furs were actually worth something. So it made sense to protect that for the local guys that were living here, making money. But now it would be like nobody will even buy like raccoons. They'll buy dry hides, but they won't buy them on the round right now because they're not worth anything.
Hey, Ben, have you ever eaten raccoon?
Oh, that's a good question. I might have. Let's just say there might have been a few beers involved in this.
You'll have that.
I don't think I ever have, actually. Have you guys?
I'm trying to remember if I had too, and I think maybe at a wild game feed one time where you were walking around a table sampling a bunch of stuff. I'm sure I had it there. But Cory, how do you prepare your raccoon?
I am not a raking connoisseur, so I'm not sure. I did have a recipe that I was going to try on this Save the Poults raccoon camp this weekend that got canceled, so I'll have to save that recipe till next year, and we'll talk about it on the 552nd episode.
There you go. Very good, Ben. I know you're a big turkey hunter. You're probably excited about it, but you've been pretty busy training those pups.
Yeah, I've been running dogs. The snow has come off, at least the southern part of the grouse woods now. So, getting the dogs ready for field trials this spring, and then definitely sneak in some turkey hunting as well. The nice thing is, I'll go field trial for one day, and then you can go spend 2 or 3 days hunting. So I'm looking forward to it. But this weather isn't helping right now.
Right. Well, I know you were down at George Lyle's, and I've told many people this. I want to build a shouse or build a new place, and I want the exact same setup that George has there.
Oh, it's so dialed out there. Just giant pole barn area, all heated, dog kennels, nice man cave. The place is it's perfect for going out dog training and having a good time. So,
well, and you can walk in with muddy boots. You don't have to worry about anything. You got the dogs in there. That's an indoor, outdoor kennel type situation for the pups. It's a pretty nice setup, for sure. And then, so how can you use, as somebody that is working with my dog out in the yard right now, doing a lot of training, how can I use OnX in my dog training adventures, Ben?
Yeah. So one of the biggest thing is I use a lot to find different grounds to train dogs on. So, in a pointing dog situation, I'm looking for short grass areas with not a whole lot of terrain so I can see the dog to deliver corrections. And so you can go on the map and essentially go scout public areas up until, in Minnesota, at least up until the 15th, you can run on public lands. And then I'll also look at private lands, areas that I don't think pheasants or any other nesting birds will be, so I'm not disturbing them. And then in terms of you looking at retrievers, finding good water is huge, right? There's so many ponds around that are just surrounded by cattails and, great for training in some situations, but in a lot of respects it's not. So going out and finding ponds with clean banks, different angles, things you can send them on, do swim by, etc. You can all scout that on your OnX Hunt app.
I used it quite a bit last year when we were turkey hunting because I wanted to know how far I walked at the end of the day and where I went. So I made I set the route and made a track and was able to follow my journey on where I went and called at turkeys, and just to see, I was curious just to see how much I moved around and chased the birds around and how far they traveled and things like that. So a lot of tools that you can do, especially when you're working in a new area. And I want to bring Thor on, who's joining us right now too. Thor, how's it going?
It's going good.
You travel a little bit chasing turkeys, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I travel every single year pretty much, especially to Nebraska. I got family land down here, so it's really easy for me to come down. I got a shoe in every single year. And that picture there, that's from last spring, just about a year ago. I think a week and a year ago, something like that. On my way back up from Texas, actually, where I killed a bird, I stopped by just to hunt for a day and was lucky enough to harvest that bird with the bow, because Nebraska runs their early archery season from March 25th until I think the third weekend in April. That third Saturday is when they open their shotgun season. So you get 4 weeks then, or 3.5 weeks to hunt strictly with a bow, and I like that a lot. And it's a good way to kick off the year for sure and kick off the season.
So you're actually down there right now?
Yes, I am right now. Yeah, I was hoping to be out in the blind already, but or at least on the property, but it's probably better that I'm not since I'm on the radio show. But after I'm done with this, I'll be going and setting up a couple of ground blinds and putting some birds to bed for tomorrow morning.
Ah, very cool. How many can you shoot down there? Is it
you
three?
Can shoot three.
Three.
Yeah, license is $128 a piece, so not the worst in the world, but
for somebody that doesn't have land access down there, if someone's just going to come down there and try to shoot birds, like how much public land is there, or how likely is it for somebody traveling down there to get in on birds and have get a chance at three of them?
Well, I know that Nebraska does have I believe it's the largest amount of non-resident hunters come and hunt every year here. And they do have a fair amount of public land. I can't really speak to hunting on it because I've just been kind of spoiled with hunting private my whole time down here. But I know that there are guys that do find a lot of success in the public lands, but that typically runs along where the rivers are, like the Platte and the Missouri, typically on the north end of the state. Up in those areas. But you get a chance to shoot 3 of the 4 subspecies here. They got Rios, Merriams, and Easterns, and then hybrids. That's pretty much what's all on the properties that I hunt is hybrids. So,
Cory, are you going to have when are you going to start making turkey calls up there at the DRC Call Company? Because
I made one diaphragm last year for myself, and I liked it a lot, but no plans to keep doing that.
You made, like I've heard some. I guess I haven't been around a lot of great turkey callers, but some of the noises you were making on that thing, and I think we might have a video. You were okay at it, I guess.
Uh-oh.
That was pretty cool.
To poorly explain what I do for a living, I make animal noises.
Yeah, no, you do a good job at it, and it was so cool. And I know you use your crank call a lot as a locator, But you had that. Can you find the video? We got a lot of videos to play, I know, but
that's a
just
one lone one.
Yeah, we just spotted. We were scouting, and you found that one up in the tree. Oh yeah. That's when you were hooting at him.
And
you actually got him to gobble back. We didn't hear it in that video, but he did actually gobble back, which was pretty cool. But there should be another one there where you were actually calling at one of the birds, and we
Thor,
gave Dan.
Hey, Thor, is there a bunch of sandhill cranes down in Nebraska right now?
I haven't really seen many on the drive down. I didn't see too many.
Okay. All right.
And I'm not in the part of Nebraska that typically gets a big group of them during the springtime. That's a lot further west of where I am.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, we get a bunch of nesting pairs up here that are here all summer long. So we hear sandhills way up here in the northwest part of Minnesota all turkey season and all summer. And I'm always paying attention to what other animals are making noises and stirring up the turkeys and getting the gobblers to shock gobble. And it's like time and time again, the sandhill crane is probably the most productive. I think way more pronounced than a crow flying over or something like that. But I really enjoy using that sandhill crane call to locate turkeys because I just don't think anyone else does. So, there you go, right there. Let's hear it.
Nope. Yeah, come on.
I just call Cory and put him on speakerphone when I try to locate
All right, I found that video. So you guys talk amongst yourselves here for a second. I'm gonna.
How is this gonna happen?
I don't know.
This will be. Hold on.
I'm gonna send Dan this.
What point in the record case was 17:28? We gotta make an edit mark. Fill
Our
with
tribe
roll 17:28.
For turkey hunt.
Roll. Here, you try to make a noise on this.
Yeah,
thing.
I've never touched this thing.
Oh, there you go, David. Yeah, for sure.
Cory, how do I do it?
Live sample instruction.
You blow into one end. And
I've never touched this in my life. It's the first time touching this crane call.
For sure.
I've heard that before.
I don't have one tuned up yet.
I'll embarrass myself on the internet.
Just
I don't care.
try it. Figure out how you think.
Nope.
That's a goose.
Not it. That is not it.
Is this even the right end to blow in?
Well, I watched his videos. I mean, it looks right. I don't know.
We just did a podcast, just recorded one with Mike Chamberlain, the wild turkey doc.
Oh, yeah.
And we were
that's
asking
awesome.
about why turkeys shock gobble. And he was saying that they think it's because when the bird hears basically a certain frequency. So things like crows, geese, whatever, trucks, air brakes, whatever it might be, whatever that tone is, when that cuts across and that hits their ear, they'll react to it. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, that it was more of a certain tone thing than it was like a specific sound or whatever.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that before.
I would totally agree with that. I've seen a lot of very similar things to that, because when you're walking around and there's a noise that's made a long ways away, whether it's a turkey or a goose or a sandhill crane or even sometimes a crow, you stop in your tracks and try and decipher what the heck it is. And sometimes, like, all of those sounds, if they're a long ways away, sound very similar to one another, especially a goose honk.
Yeah.
Sam, did he say anything about in terms of pressure? Because obviously, like, the more pressure you get, a lot of the times they're not going to gobble as much. Did he talk about that at all?
Yeah, so he's in the middle of a research study. They're studying the amount of turkey gobbles during the season, and they have these listening devices that they put like 30 feet up in the tree, and they measure how many times the turkey gobbles throughout the season, like leading up to the season, and then when the pressure is the highest, and when it's like later in the season, and it's pretty crazy because when hunting pressure hits, birds will start to shut up. And even more so than that, there will be a hunter and a turkey, like they'll have the hunters like carry GPSs on them, and they have collared turkeys. And there will be hunters and turkeys basically like paralleling each other. and the turkey's staying just far enough away because it knows that hunter is there listening to him basically call all morning. And then as soon as the hunter leaves, then the turkey just goes and wanders around wherever it wants to. So pretty interesting studies that he's doing.
And that's all through, I mean, isn't Turkeys for Tomorrow, are they supporting that?
Turkeys for Tomorrow sounds like lunch.
Well, there were a couple of moments up there last year, Cory, where it was watching back some of the footage as we were getting ready for the show. All the footage that we're not going to be able to show for you right now, apparently. But the way the sound echoed across and the way those cranes, between the cranes, and then there was, I think you were calling at one, Tom, and there was like a blue-winged teal that you got all riled up, and he was kind of squawking back at us. I think that was part of the fun of that trip, is just hearing all the different animal noises that were out there. And that's, of course, one of the beauties of being out there and chasing birds around. Ticks are not so much fun, and we had the Tick Terminator on the show here this week, and we talked a little bit about permethrin. And Cory, you've been a big proponent of tick prevention and tick deterrence and using permethrin and all that. And this year, though, you got well, technically, I think it was last year, but this year you're promoting the new suit from Sitka that's treated with insect guard. What's it got on it?
Yeah, basically it just has permethrin baked right into the fabric, so it's going to prevent tick and mosquito, any type of insects from landing and hanging out on that garment, because it's permethrin is a nerve agent that they hate, so they just hate being on it. And I know Sam's a big fan of permethrin. I use it all year long to prevent mosquitoes, because I'm usually dog training right in the evening when the mosquitoes come out, and so I'll be dressed up in long sleeve with a hood like that, maybe one of my Sitka shirts that's treated with permethrin, and yeah, it works really good for tick prevention, mosquito prevention all year long when we have those buggers around. But yeah, for the most part, I'm kind of like scared to death of a lot of things that they can transmit. So it was more like out of fear why I started using it.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame you. And I did not come prepared last year. I didn't have anything sprayed on, and I was the one that dealt with the ticks the most, I think. And I was constantly throwing them in that fire. And then I did have that one small one that bit into me, and you immediately said, go home, go to your doctor, and have them give you doxycycline today. Mm-hmm. Don't even mess around.
Absolutely.
With it.
Yeah. I had one of those deer ticks embed itself in the very inside of my belly button about 4 years ago. Oofta. And had no idea it was there. Just kind of felt some tenderness on my stomach and couldn't find it till the next day. I just digging around in my belly button, like not super common, but scared the heck out of me. So I went in the doctor. She just said, here you go, here's prescription, 2 pills of doxycycline. I walked right over to the pharmacy connected to the clinic and grabbed my 2 pills, walked to the water fountain, down the hatch, and good to go. No worries. And so, yeah, if you have a what's that? Did anyone else hear that, or what? Is that just me?
Was it a phone? It was my phone vibrating against the window.
It sounded like something different.
Promise I'm not cutting farts over here.
It sounded so wet. Oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah. I'm editing this segment for Prairie Sportsman right now too, and we were filming an eel pod episode, and we were up in Northwoods Bait up in
Northwoods Bait and Tackle.
Yeah, Northwoods Bait and Tackle. And we were doing some interviews and filming and whatever, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I walked into the bathroom and did my thing, whatever. And, here a month later, I'm watching the footage. Definitely still have my microphone on the whole time. I'm in there farting. I'm going to the bathroom. And it's just like footage of, close-ups of jigs on the wall, Oh, man. Anyway.
Turkey podcast.
Going off the rails.
Ben, we're getting ready for turkeys here in Minnesota. How soon are you out there scouting and trying to find them before the season starts?
Oh, I'm out there right now. A lot of them are grouped up and whatnot, so you can find the big concentrations, and pretty soon here they're going to start dispersing, but a lot of the times they won't go far. And this is a great time because nobody's out chasing them. They're out in fields sucking up all that moisture from that hot spring, or I shouldn't say hot spring anymore, but it just soaking up that sunshine. So you'll find them out in the fields, and then you go back to a lot of those same locations or adjacent locations and ask permission or start to pattern them. So
are you shotgun guy? You chase them with a bow at all?
No, turkeys were put on this earth to be shot in the head with a shotgun. that is a quote from Will Primos directly.
Yeah, well, he's not wrong. I had to be convinced. I chased him with a bow the first year I ever hunted him, and when I didn't shoot one on the last day of the season, I shot one with a shotgun. And then I chased him with a bow for a number of years, and I finally, last year, I made the switch. I'm never chasing with a bow again. And Dan, what did I tell you, Dan?
I don't know. I was convinced that this is what I was going to chase him with a bow for one reason only, because this was when I was going to school in Bemidji. There's nothing to do in the spring. Ice fishing, you're sick of ice fishing. There's nothing to do. It's like, well, what do I want to do? Well, it's turkey hunt. I don't want to turkey hunt for 1 week. And, you get the extra weeks in the back. So I'm like, I probably won't even shoot a bird, but we're going to turkey hunt for a month and a half. This is going to be great. We're going to sit in the woods. We're going to eat donuts, drink coffee, whatever. It's going to be awesome. Well, I don't know. Everyone says it was so hard, and you're like, it's going to be tough.
I told him to get ready for a disappointment.
My season lasted 45 minutes.
Shoot.
And shot my first bird. We were done. And I was like kind of irritated because I was like,
that's the whole point.
I wanted to keep hunting. Yeah. And so now I'm done. And what am I going to do in spring in Bemidji? And I don't know I think I filmed you, Thor, or I don't know what I did the rest of the spring.
You came out on a couple of hunts with me because I remember that season. That was 2020. So that was when school was shut down essentially because of COVID. And I put my academics on the back burner. And I think I hunted 37 days for turkeys that season.
Jeez.
And of course, that was the most frustrating thing because I was hunting a lot of it without a ground blind too, and I didn't have one of those full strut attachments for my decoy because I didn't want to get shot because that would totally happen on public land,
especially up there.
There are a lot of uneducated guys that are very new to it because they've only been around for about the past 10, 15 years up in the northern part of the state.
Not long.
They're relatively new. So, there's a lot of guys that are trying it for the first time. And I know when COVID happened, a lot of people tried it for the first time. And some of the public land spots that I hunted, most of the, calling from other people you'd hear, they'd just be driving down the road and rolling down their window and ripping a box call out the window. And that was all they did. And if they didn't get a gobble, they just kept on going. So, but, that was a tough season to eat a tag. That was a rough one.
Corey, do we need to get him sent a new sweatshirt, Corey?
Yeah, we could do that.
I realized that when I started here, I'm like, that's probably the worst thing I could be wearing right now.
In Minnesota, the youth can hunt the entire season with whatever weapon they choose. So I did a career day at the middle school. I've done that tried to do it every year for the last quite a few years, maybe 10 years, and I would bring a sign-up sheet with me to career day, and then I would ask them after my presentation was done if there was any kids that wanted to go turkey hunting. So I would just have a whole list of kids lined up that ready to go turkey hunting. So I didn't have to take any days off ever because I'd just go down the list hey, you and your dad want to go, your dad, mom, parent, whatever, you want to go turkey hunting tonight? And I would just go down the list and find one that was ready to go, and we'd line up a turkey hunt for that night or the next morning or whatever it was. So that's been my game plan for the last quite a while. Just kids, take them out, they can hunt whenever, all the time. And there's just nothing. I really don't get too much of a thrill out of pulling trigger on a turkey. I just don't care about it. I love eating them, and I just love calling them in for anyone else. So best of both worlds. Oh, there's little Eva there, my little 3-year-old piled one up. Sure, that's a pretty good video to check out.
How many 3-year-olds have you taken turkey hunting now, Cory? That have been successful.
Yep, two 3-year-old kids. There's an art. There's a lot of prep involved in that. That's not just like, hey, you're 3, it's time to go turkey hunting. There's a lot of prep involved with just getting them situated and used to the gun. And we don't push to fill a tag whatsoever. If the stars align and things happen the way they want to happen, and then if the opportunity presents itself, then we take them. But no, Eva and I were turkey hunting. She had these headphones on. We had a little bit of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse going on YouTube. On the phone, I was cooking stew on the
I do the same thing.
Successful.
I love it. That's cool. Hey, that's one way of getting kids out, right? And getting them out into the outdoors. And it is pretty interesting when you talk about northern Minnesota and the turkey population and how it's grown, because they haven't been up there for that long, right?
Correct. Yeah, this flock of birds that I'm chasing was all reintroduced by the DNR, and they pretty much just exploded. And oh man, from where they dropped them off, I know I've chased turkeys 35 miles away from the spot where they dropped them off, and whether they're the descendants of those birds, I'm not real positive, or if they're private flocks that expanded, I'm not real positive. But yeah, they cover a pretty big area up here and expanding every year. So,
Sam, you talked about saving the poults or trapping to protect them a little bit. Is that are we going to learn more about turkeys and how to protect them? Is that the kind of stuff we're going to hear about on the podcast that you're hosting?
Yeah, so the podcast that we did was a little bit more kind of an A to Z on everything turkey hunting related. It was kind of geared towards new turkey hunters, but also with enough information where people who have done it for a long time can learn something. So Ben and I just did the first one ourselves, and we talked about kind of the state of the union of the wild turkey and the fact that there's some populations that are diminishing, some populations are still exploding. And then we went down the line. So we went we had Will Primos on, talked about like kind of describing the modern turkey hunter. And then we talked to Mike Chamberlain, and he talked all about turkey biology and kind of what the turkey is able to do. And then we went through like turkey hunting gear with Lake Pickle. And then we had 2 guys on back to back. We had Dave Owens and then Jason Hart, 2 guys of like a little over a group of 20 that have killed a bird in all 49 states that you can hunt them in.
Cool.
And then, and then we had Jesse Griffiths on talking about cooking them. So we kind of tried to cover everything from like what is turkey hunting to actually turkey hunting to then eating the bird at the end was kind of the game plan.
How did he cook it?
So he likes to do it super simple. He does like turkey nuggets and then like does like a real slow cook on the legs. So he'll take a breast or whatever and then chunk it up, pull the tendons out and pull out the fat tissue. But yeah, chunk it up or brine it first and then chunk it up and then batter it and fry it.
Deep fry it.
He's like, I just like to keep it as simple as possible and delicious. And then on the leg side of things, he's typically doing like a crock pot meal with a little bit of stock and just letting it like cook all day and break apart. So
I love the crock pot for my goose legs. I just did some snow goose legs in there yesterday, as a matter of fact. But I'll tell you what, the first wild turkey I shot, I just barbecued them. I cooked them on the grill. I don't remember, this is a while ago, so I don't remember how long I cooked them for or anything like that, but it was just a regular gas grill, and I just grilled them, and I could not believe how good the flavor was. And I just, I might have seasoned them a little bit, maybe threw some barbecue sauce on there, but they were delicious.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you went full like Renaissance Festival turkey legs.
That's exactly what I was trying to do, because the big old turkey legs that you can get, I used to get them at concert festivals or whatever, or Renaissance Festival or wherever else. But yeah, it's exactly what I was thinking is, because if I see a turkey leg at a county fair or whatever, I have to get it. I don't care if I'm hungry or not. I just like walking around with a big hunk of meat. and you know, whatever, you got to do it. So yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when I threw them on the grill, and just the natural flavor. I was surprised just how good the natural flavor was, because I'd been warned, you're not going to like the flavor, that wild bird's going to be, you know, kind of gamey, whatever. That was delicious. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, wild turkey's like, you get to, it actually tastes like turkey, which is nice. And I like to do, I've got a couple different ways. I really like doing like a pozole verde, like a soup, like a kind of a Mexican soup. And it's amazing. You just throw a whole turkey breast in the crock pot with tomatillos, an onion, and jalapeno, and some chicken stock, and you let that cook down. Then you blend the veggies and shred the meat. You add hominy and cilantro into it, and then just let it cook for a little while, and then it's amazing.
I got to start getting more fancy with my wild game cooking.
You can't keep doing your meat, cheese, and tortilla taco.
It's a taco, though, man.
I'm not going to argue on that. It is good, but there's so many more flavors out there for you to explore. But it's so simple, and I'm busy, whatever. It's quick and easy. Like we joke about me starting to film cooking segments for Prairie Sportsman as like the basic wild game chef. Like the
Nothing
easiest,
fancy.
Yeah, the easiest way to cook it and make it taste good with the simplest recipe and the least amount of ingredients.
And money, pasta sides, $1 rice-a-roni.
That's so good, though.
And it is good.
Oh man,
I do have a couple pointers.
Brett Amundson spice kit.
You've got one too many there.
You got to throw some Creole seasoning in there, some Tony Chachere's, though. Absolutely.
If you want to tenderize the legs and thighs before, if you want to try and Renaissance man those things on the grill, I would suggest a very acidic marinade. Inject a marinade into those, and that acid, like typically is fruit juices, pineapple juice is like pound for pound has the most acid, so that would break that tissue down. But those gobblers that we're shooting might be 2, 3, 4 years old, and they've spent the majority of that time standing on those legs, so they're pretty tough. So you want to try and tenderize them as much as possible, and a little bit of hot sauce, apple juice, orange juice, a little bit of pineapple juice, some salt, some brown sugar. Mix that up, inject them with that, leave them in that injection in a bowl in the fridge for about 2 days, and you will find that you can actually grill them and eat them after that. So,
well, after watching you work the flat top a little bit, I want to work a flat top. I bought a Blackstone, so I'm going to work that into my cooking repertoire a little bit. But I emceed the Pheasants Forever banquet, East Medicine in Granite Falls the other night, and when I MC things, a lot of times. I emceed a DU banquet once, and I was like, yeah, here's $10, here's $20. I was throwing money and everything just to kind of, donate money or whatever. I won everything. Like, I kept announcing my name as the winner of all the big prizes, and I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So now I've kind of scaled back. I still try to put money in, but I don't like, it's always fun to win. But now when you're the MC and you got 350 people in the room that have also put money into that thing. So they were doing some contests, some of the walk-around contests the other night. And it was a deck of 52 cards. They sell them for $10 a piece or whatever, and they rip the card in half, and then 52 people go into the drawing for whatever the prize is. So when they'd get down to a few and they weren't selling anymore, I'd always be like, all right, I'm going to throw some money in, and that usually gets, before the person even gets back to me, somebody ends up buying all the cards, and I never get into it. Well, I got the last one for this big, giant $400 smoker the other day. And guess who won it? The only thing I put money in this bank, I threw $10 in one contest. I win a $400 smoker. So I've got this Masterbuilt. Is that
it was a Masterbuilt? Yeah.
This giant smoker. Apparently,
congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Apparently, can do 16 chickens at once. So, I'm kind of excited to try smoking. I've got a pellet grill that I use all the time. I enjoy that, but I'm kind of anxious to try using the smoker out a little bit. I haven't really. Do you guys use smokers much anymore?
Pellet grill.
Or the pellet grill, yeah.
I've got a vertical smoker I use quite a bit.
Yeah. What do you like to put in there?
I do a lot of jerky and sticks and like pork roasts I'll do in there, and pretty much everything you do on a Traeger or pellet grill. But just takes longer.
I know. I love the pellet grill, and one of these days I'm gonna make an igloo dehydrator and make some stuff like Cory did when you had to build the Quincy to dehydrate stuff. Weren't you smoking or dehydrating something out there?
Yeah, I was smoke dehydrating in the igloo in the front yard in the middle of winter to make honker jerky. Turned out awesome. Best honker I've ever had. How many raccoons do you think is equivalent to 16 chickens?
How many raccoons could you fit in that smoker?
I'll know that for sure.
What's your standard frying chicken?
It's 2.
It's 2, Ben?
Yep. Yeah, it's if you just Google it, it's pretty readily available.
What Google do you use?
All right, this
Ask Jeeves is what I use.
What is the weirdest out of this group? What's the weirdest wild game that someone in this on this podcast has eaten?
Well, you guys asked about raccoons. I ate Coatamundi.
What?
It's like a raccoon, but it's kind of like a mix between a raccoon and a monkey.
Whoa.
Where'd you have that?
So down in Arizona, you can shoot one in Arizona, and one of the guys on the trip shot one. And if you've never seen one, they look a lot like a raccoon, but their tail is kind of like it goes up and then it curves back, or like curves forward towards its head. And but they run around in troops, so there will be like 40 Coatamundis in a troop. And the big males can be aggressive. But anyway, a guy shot one in camp, and one of the other guys was going to cook it. And Hank Shaw happened to be in camp, and
cool.
The guy that was going to cook it was just going to like toss it on the grill, and Hank was like, he got like so pissed off, he just like stole the Coatamundi and made it himself, and turned it into like braised it all day, and then basically turned it into like barbecued it and threw it on the grill to finish it off, and it tasted like chicken wings.
Huh.
Yeah, I didn't eat a lot of it. I just couldn't get my head around eating that thing.
Right.
But then had wolf tacos last summer.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
How were those?
Those were pretty good. Really good. Yep. They made them on out at the Rendezvous on the guys that run the Birch Barrel booth. They made them, kind of cooked them like a brisket, like just cooked them real slow and low all day until they hit like, I think it was like 204 degrees, and then just shredded it and had street tacos. It was delicious.
I've had Timberwolf with Cory, as a matter of fact, and Cory cooked it up. It was pretty good, but that's probably the strangest wild game that I've probably eaten. But when you showed up, and you pulled a rattlesnake out of your pocket and said, "Here, cook this on the grill for me, would you?" I was making doves.
Yeah.
The next thing I know, there's a rattlesnake on the grill next to me. Okay, I guess I'm in charge of cooking the snake. Okay. It was good.
I liked it.
Yeah. All right, Cory, what is that? What can you add to this conversation?
Oh, I mean, do you want to know?
You can say whatever you want on podcasts.
Pig fetuses.
Ooh.
I
mean, that's like veal, kind of.
Yeah.
I have photos.
I remember that. I think I saw a picture, actually.
You've got my email. Can you send those over,
seeing
Sam?
those pictures.
Yeah.
How did you get into that situation? Like, what things in your life led you down that?
Guns, Texas.
Texas.
And then pigs died, and they were pregnant, and then I deboned them and went digging around, and by golly, there was some pretty nice fetuses inside of there, so I put them on the grill. That's what I did.
Do you think it turned out like a veal almost, or what?
Hold on. What's that?
Kind of like a piglet veal.
I mean, if you want to know, it tasted so much like milk. It was weird. It was awkward.
Very awkward.
Very awkward.
Yeah. There it is.
I don't know where to go after this, guys.
We're winning a Marconi for sure this year.
We're officially off the rails. It only took us an hour to get there.
45 minutes to be exact.
I want to know how did it taste? How does something taste like milk?
I don't know. It didn't taste like meat, really. It tasted bland. I don't know how to explain it.
Did you cook it to 165? I mean, how do you, like, what?
Did you've been to Texas with me?
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Put it right on the spit, smoked it, grilled it over mesquite.
I did not partake in eating any of that.
No, we ate half monkey, half raccoon. Half raccoon?
Yeah, but you're talking about a raccoon cooked by Hank Shaw.
Yeah, that's true. You know, it's funny. I can see Hank pulling rank in that situation and be like, no. Give that half raccoon to me. And I bet it was good. I bet he was excited. Had he ever cooked something like that before?
No, I think he'd cooked raccoon, so you know, very similar, like up to that. But on that same trip, I had shot a cottontail, and I've never really shot rabbits, but I brought it back to cook, and I was going to clean it. And he's like, "Have you ever done that before?" And I was like, "No. You want to show me how?" And he goes, "Just give it to me." He's like, "I literally wrote the book on this." He just took the rabbit and pop, like done. And I was like, okay, glad I learned that one. Yep.
He did actually write the book on it.
Yep.
Right there. Yeah.
Yep. He wasn't lying. Yeah.
David, you shot a rabbit or two.
Yeah, I've killed a few. We do an annual rabbit hunt with all my buddies every year.
How many did you shoot this year?
69.
When did you get rid of the carcasses?
2 weeks ago. We do it on Black Friday.
Oh, boy.
Day after Thanksgiving.
Oh, my God. Well, I'm sure, I bet Hank was pretty excited to cook that up. And anytime he gets the chance to cook something new up, I bet he's pretty excited about it. And I bet it was delicious as well, too. Ben, did we hear from you? Ben and Thor, what's your wildest meal?
Probably the wildest for me would be nutria.
Oh.
Which is like a beaver / rat critter that lives down in Louisiana.
How was that?
It was fine. Yeah, I mean, it tasted, wasn't anything crazy, but down there they're invasive, destroy a lot of that aquatic ecosystems down there. So if you have a big time, go drive around on an airboat or whatever and shoot them, and like, what the heck, let's try to eat it. And it was fine.
You know, I'm a firm believer that you can take just about anything, and if you process it and care for it and cook it the right way, you can make it taste good. Thor, what about you?
Honestly, nothing that crazy. Probably, I have obviously had rabbit, squirrel, all that stuff. Probably the grossest was just a plain merganser breast, because we wanted to see whether or not they were that terrible. There's a ton of common mergansers that fly around Leech Lake during the late season, and when the goldeneye aren't flying, there's plenty of mergansers to go around. And I remember I was like, they can't be that bad. They're god awful. So
how'd you cook them?
Huh?
How'd you cook them? Because I've had good merganser.
Well, that was the thing, is I didn't use any marinade, didn't use any. I just wanted to see how they tasted. Plain, fried in butter with a little bit of salt and pepper. Yeah, no, it's a very fishy aftertaste on them sawbills. So, yeah, I'll let them pass next time.
Crock pot them, and they taste just like a goldeneye.
We
shoot them all day long.
Typically just throw them in a big old marinade bowl, and they taste all the same after sitting in there for a week. But fresh merganser, I don't recommend. Yeah.
I mean, how good is a goldeneye, too, at that point?
Well,
really?
That's why they all taste the same. Yeah. As good as a merganser.
I mean, come on. All right, guys.
I plucked and spatchcocked a merganser in North Dakota a couple years ago, and I threw it on the flat top just for Rue, simply to feed it to her. And one of the guys in the camp didn't know what I was doing. He was inside while this was going on, and he stepped outside onto the deck and smelled it, and he said, "Who's frying fish?" So there you go.
Well, I'll finish this. I think I've told this story on the show before. Maybe I told it recently, but if you see a bunch of mergansers and a bunch of bald eagles, the eagles will watch those mergansers dive down, catch fish, and when the merganser comes up to the surface to eat it, the eagles will dive bomb them, make them drop the fish, and then steal the fish from them. So there's a little bald eagle story for you to wrap up the show. Sam, Cory, Ben, Thor, Dan, David, good luck this turkey season, and thanks for the time today on the show.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
And stay tuned for more pig fetus recipes.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.